Hi students, welcome to SPSVERSITY. In the previous session we discussed about the nervous system, the structure of neuron and the parts of a brain, its functions. So like this we discussed about the central nervous system, the human neural system, the structure of neuron and the transmission of nerve impulse through the neuron, at the same time through chemical synapse. Today we are going to discuss about reflex action. So what is this reflex action? So this reflex action is a spontaneous, automatic and involuntary response. So it is a sudden, automatic, involuntary response. Involuntary means which is not under our control to a sensory stimulus which usually occurs to emergency. Okay. And the pathway by which nerve impulse occurs during reflex action, it is called reflex arc. So it is called reflex arc. So this reflex action is of two types. One is cerebral reflex action and another one is spinal reflex action. So cerebral reflex action means where the nerve impulse reaches to brain. Spinal nerve reflex action means the nerve impulse reaches to spinal cord. So reflex arc formed in the spinal cord. So information goes to the brain for further processing and memory. So reflex arc reaction is an spontaneous, automatic and involuntary action. So which is seen in response to emergency. So here when you take a reflex arc, that is, it starts with receptor. Next, from receptor, the information goes through sensory neuron and to the relay neuron in spinal cord. Again, information comes from spinal cord to motor neuron and finally it reaches to effector. So receptors are sensitive cells in our body which receive stimuli. Stimuli means any action. Like in our body there are a lot of receptors, like gustatory receptors which are present on tongue, which are meant for stimulus of taste. Olfactoreceptors which are meant for smell in nose. Photoreceptors which are present in, that is eyes. Phygoreceptors which are present on skin for touch. Auditory receptors which are for sound in the ear. These are different receptors present in our sense organs. So skin, eyes, ear, nose, these are different sense organs which have receptors for taking the stimulus. So once the receptors have taken the stimulus, so that is the impulse should be carried to central nervous system. That is the neuron which carries the impulse to central nervous system, it is called sensory neuron. And opposite one, which carries impulse from central nervous system to effector, which is called motor neuron. So sensory neuron takes impulse towards central nervous system, and whereas motor neuron takes impulse away from central nervous system. Effector. So effector means whatever the impulse received from motor neuron, it will produce a response. It may be a muscle or it may be a gland. So it may be a muscle or it may be a gland. So here you can observe in the diagram very clearly the stimulus which is received by a receptor. Here it is taken as skin. So this impulse through sensory neuron, it reaches to the relay neuron, where the processing of information will take place. After processing through motor neuron, it reaches to effector. That is, it may be muscle, here in this it is muscle, or it may be gland, which will show a response. So response is exhibited by the effector. So this is spinal cord. So whatever the reflex action, which is showing in the figure, it is spinal reflex arc. So it is spinal reflex arc. It is. Okay. So here it is starting from receptors. The stimulus is starting where it is from the receptors. Okay. Through sensory neuron. The second one is sensory neuron. The third one, relay neuron. The fourth one, motor neuron. And the fifth one, the effector, by which the muscle or gland it will reach. Okay. So like this, the reflex action will proceed in a reflex arc. So in this it is showing, it is spinal reflex arc. It is a spinal reflex action where it is sent to spinal cord. In which situations it will take place generally? Generally in situations like whenever we keep our hands unknowingly into hot water. So whenever we keep our hands unknowingly in the hot water, suddenly we will remove the hand from this hot water. This sudden involuntary and automatic action. So sudden involuntary and automatic action, it is called an reflex action. So which takes place generally during an emergency situation. So which we may not expect. So our body will respond immediately. So it will show the effectors will respond immediately, either muscle or gland. Okay. So every day we can come across such type of reflex actions in our daily life. So every day we will come across this. Either it may be cerebral reflex action or the spinal reflex action. So what you are observing in the diagram, it is a spinal reflex action. So where the information reaches to spinal cord. Ultimately from spinal cord again it will come to the effector. Okay. So till now we discussed about the reflex action. and the pathway that is reflex arc. So now we are going to discuss about sense organs. Specifically, we are going to discuss about eye and ear. So which play important role in our daily life. So eye is one sense organ which is meant for vision. So which is meant for vision. So we have a pair of eyes. In this, each eye is covered by 3 layers. Outermost layer is called sclera. Innermost middle layer is called choroid, and innermost layer is called retina. So sclera, choroid, retina. So sclera, which is the anterior portion of sclera, that is the part of sclera which is faced towards anterior, it is called cornea. Okay. So choroid has parts like ciliary body, iris and pupil. And when you come to retina, retina has 3 layers of cells. That is ganglion cells, bipolar cells and photoreceptors. Photoreceptors means rods and cones. So retina has 3 layers cells, that is ganglion, bipolar cells, photoreceptors, that is rods and pigments. So photoreceptors means they contain photopigments like rhodopsin and iodopsin. Okay. And there are, specifically when you come to cones, there are 3 types of cones which respond to different colors: red, green and blue. Red, green and blue. Okay. So here when you take the blind spot for optic nerve which leaves the eye, that is which nerve to leave and blood vessels to enter, that spot is called blind spot. Okay. So fovea is yellowish pigmented spot which is called macula lutea. Okay, fovea contains only cones, hence visual activity is highest. Fovea contains only cones, it has highest visual activity. Okay. And there are 2 chambers, aqueous chamber and vitreous chamber, which is filled with, aqueous chamber is filled with aqueous humor and vitreous chamber is filled with vitreous humor. So here when you come to the picture of an eye, so this is, that is when you take the outermost layer, this is sclera, and the middle layer choroid, retina which is rich in blood vessels. Okay. So the anterior part of the cornea, that is the anterior part of sclera, is called cornea. Okay. And in between this iris body and the lens, there is a chamber, that is vitreous chamber. It is aqueous chamber, which is filled with aqueous humor. So which is filled with aqueous humor. The liquid which is present here, it is called aqueous humor. Okay. And this is iris, the choroid layer which forms the iris, ciliary body and the lens. So ciliary body will hold the lens, iris which is present in front of the lens. Okay. So this is the middle layer choroid. And when you come to this chamber, it is called vitreous chamber. So this chamber is called vitreous chamber, which is filled with vitreous humor. So vitreous chamber is filled with vitreous humor, the liquid. Okay. And the spot where the blood vessels leaves, the blood vessel enters, this spot is called foci, that is black spot. So retina is rich in, that is, the blood vessels, and it is having photoreceptors, ganglion cells, bipolar cells. Okay. So this is yellow spot maculae, where there are maximum cones, the visual activity is more. So these are the different parts which are present in an eye. And when you go into a little bit deep into the retina, so when you take the retina part, okay, so when you take the cross section of eye, in the cross section of retina, when you take, okay, so in this cross section of retina, the lowermost, that is, if you take the ganglion cells, that is the ganglion axons, the ganglion cell layers. And the next layer is bipolar cell layers. And the final layer, that is receptor layer, and this is pigmented epithelium. So receptor layer means which is made up of the pigments which are cones and rods, which play an important role in the vision. Okay. So in the cross section of retina, there is ganglion cells, bipolar cell layer, and photopigments, that is receptor layer, which has the cones and the rods. Okay. So here, if you take this, the moment of the light, that is the perception of light from this direction. Okay. So this is retina, this entire part is retina. When you take a transverse section of retina, so it looks like this. That is inner lining membrane, nerve fiber layer. So next to it is the ganglion cells. After that, we can see bipolar cells. And there are Muller cells, and there is a membrane, outer limiting membrane. And this is receptor area. So which consists of cones? These are cones and these are called rods. So here you can see cones, red, green, yellow, like this. You can see red, green and blue, different cones, which play an important role in color vision. So differentiation of different colors. Okay. These are cones and these are rods. So which are having the photopigments, that is rhodopsin and iodopsin. So light will travel in this direction, and ultimately it is accepted by photoreceptor cells. And here when you come to mechanism of vision, so how vision will take place. So the light rays through cornea and lens reach to retina, where retina is rich in blood vessels, rods, cones, etc., which will generate impulses in rods and cones. That is nerve impulse. That is, what happens is the rhodopsin will split. That is, opposite and retinol of retinol pigment will dissociate. result in change of opposing structure. Due to dissociation, what happens is the membrane permeability will change. It results in the potential difference. So the potential difference means due to change in permeability of the membrane, what happens is it leads to the action potential. Unless it is not receiving any light, it will be in resting potential, which will result in potential difference. The potential difference means the permeability of potassium ions will be more and permeability of sodium ions will be less. Okay. So due to this, what happens is it leads to action potential in ganglion cells through bipolar cells. So this action potential through optic nerve, it reaches to visual cortex of the brain. So image is recognized based on earlier memory and experience. So this is how the mechanism of vision takes place through light rays, cornea and lens, ultimately to reach to retina. In retina, these impulse, that is rods and cones, will generate nerve impulse. So what type of impulse, how it will occur? That is this association of these photopigments, which result in membrane changes, ultimately it leads to action potential. Through optic fiber, it reaches to visual cortex of brain and image is recognized. So this is how the mechanism of vision is seen in human eye, where the rods and cones will play an important role in vision. Okay, cones will play an important role in identification of different colors. Okay. So till now we have discussed about the sense organ, that is eye, which plays an important role in vision. Follow us SPSVERSITY on social media. So now we will discuss about ear. Okay, ear has two sensory functions. Not only hearing, it also maintains body balance. So hearing as well as maintenance of body balance. And when you come to the parts of the ear, so the entire ear is divided into outer ear, middle ear and inner ear. So there are three parts in ear. The ear is divided into outer ear, middle ear and the inner ear. So there are three parts in this. When you come to outer ear it is having, that is pinna. Pinna means the external one. External auditory matters, sebaceous glands which will secrete wax, fine hairs, tympanic membrane. So these are the parts present in outer ear. Pinna, external auditory matters, the tube-like structure, sebaceous glands which will secrete wax, fine hairs, tympanic membrane. When you come to middle ear, it has three ossicles: malleus, incus, stapes. So stapes is attached to the oval window of cochlea. Cochlea comes under inner ear. And in the middle ear, again along with this malleus, incus, stapes, eustachian tube is there, which connects the middle ear cavity with pharynx. That is, There is a connectivity between the middle ear and pharynx of the digestive system. So this eustachian tube, what it will do, it will equalize the pressure on either side of the ear. It will equalize the pressure on either side of it. So ear means not only meant for hearing, it is also meant for balancing of the body, maintenance of body balance. So here you can see, this is the human ear. So in this human ear, if you take, this part will come under outer ear, pinna, external auditory matrix, which is a tube-like structure, tympanic membrane. So these all will come under external ear. Middle ear, which has 3 ossicles, so malleus, incus, stapes. So this stapes is attached to oval window of cochlea. So these 3 will come under middle ear. And when you come to inner ear, these all parts will come under inner ear, which has semicircular canals, vestibular nerve, facial nerve, internal auditory matrix, cochlear nerve. So eustachian tube, these all will come under middle ear. So an anatomy of ear has these parts will look like this: external ear, middle ear and inner ear. Okay. So if you look into this one is, these are the parts which are present in middle ear. So these are middle ear. And these are the parts which comes under the inner ear. So here you can see very clearly the parts. This is tympanic membrane, which belongs to outer ear. This is tympanic window, which has round window and oval window. So tympanic cavity ends with the round window and oval window. In the middle ear, there are 3 ossicles: malleus, incus, stapes. Stapes attaches to oval window of cochlea. It attaches to oval window of cochlea. So here you can see inside the cochlea. When you come to the inside of cochlea. So inside of the cochlea is filled with the fluid that is perilymph, where a canal is present, scala vestibule. Okay. And below this scala vestibule, there are cochlear duct which is filled with endolymph. So between cochlear and scala vestibule, there is a membrane, that is vestibular membrane. And the bottom of this cochlear duct, which has tectorial membrane, on the surface of it there are receptors. Okay. So this high pitch is received by this area, and as you move through this lower pitch, it is received by this area. That is, inside cochlea there are again different parts like scala vestibule, scala tympani, which is filled with perilymph, cochlear duct, which is filled with endolymph. Between this, at the bottom of the cochlear duct, there is an tectorial membrane, which has receptors. Receptors means nothing but hair cells, which will be vibrating according to the pitch of the sound. So here when you come to inner ear, okay, So inner ear is called labyrinth, which consists of two parts. So here when you come to in detail, inner ear is called labyrinth, which has two parts. Bony labyrinth and membranous labyrinth. And it is filled with fluids, that is endolymph and perilymph. So the coiled portion of labyrinth is called cochlea. Okay. Space above scala media is called scala vestibuli and below it is called scala tympani. So scala media. Above this it is scala vestibuli. Below this it is scala tympani. So inside, that is cochlea, there are spaces. So scala media, scala tympani, scala vestibuli. So organ of Corti is located on basilar membrane. That is above hair cells, it is tectorial membrane. So inner ear also contains vestibular apparatus above the cochlea. And along with cochlea, there are semicircular canals and otolith organ, which is saccule and ventricle. So these are different parts which are present in inner ear. So inner ear consists of bony and membranous labyrinth, which is filled with fluids, that is endolymph and perilymph. And the coiled portion of labyrinth is called cochlea. In cochlea again there are parts. The middle one is called scala media, the bottom one is tympani, scala tympani, and above is scala vestibuli. So organ of Corti is located on basilar membrane, which has hairs. Above this there is a tectorial membrane. So inner ear also contains vestibular apparatus and otolith organs, semicircular canals. Otolith organs are present. So here when you come to the inner part of cochlea, okay. So this is scala vestibuli. This is scala tympani. In between there is scala media. So in between there is scala media. This is called scala media. Okay. And organ of Corti is present on the basilar membrane. So it is basilar membrane on which organ of Corti is present. Okay. And this membrane, this is present between the scala vestibuli and scala media, it is resonance membrane. And above this organ of Corti there is tectorial membrane. Okay. So nerve, cochlear nerve leaves this cochlea. Okay. So this is organ of Corti which has hair cells. So these hair cells will be moving according to the sound. Okay. So cochlea is a inner labyrinth, consists of cochlea, and these are different parts in the cochlea. So cochlea is divided into three parts basically: scala media, scala vestibuli, scala tympani. And on basilar membrane there is organ of Corti. Above this organ of Corti there is tectorial membrane. Okay. A cochlear nerve leaves from the basilar membrane, which goes to the brain, and this is called cochlear tract. Okay. So these are the different parts which are present inside the cochlea. Okay. And when you come to projected part of semicircular canals is called crista ampullaris, which is having hair cells. So saccule ventricle containing protective ridge called macula. Okay. So crista and macula are specific receptors of vestibular apparatus for balance of the and posture of the body. So for balance and posture of the body, crista and macula play an important role. How is the mechanism of hearing takes place? We'll see. So whatever the sound waves are produced by various activities are directed to ear canal by pinna. Pinna means it comes under external ear. So that waves enter the canal are concentrated and made to strike the tympan. So they will reach to, that is through the auditory canal, it will strike the tympanum. So these vibrations are picked up by malleus on the other side. They are transmitted to fenestra ovalis via incus and the stapes. That is, when these sound waves reach to tympanum through, they will reach to the middle ear. So the middle ear, which has through malleus, first it reaches to malleus, next to incus, and next to stapes. So this stapes is attached to cochlea by a oval window that will strike the oval window or amplified 20 times more than the structures, which will amplify the sound waves to 22 times more than the structure of tympan. Okay. So these waves will travel through the vestibular canal and to the reach to cochlea. Finally, they reach to inner ear, that is cochlea, and then to tympanic canal. Okay. So these vibrations which are picked up by basilar membrane, that is hair cells which are present on the basilar membrane, which are part of organ of cortex. Due to these vibrations, there is a movement in the hair cells. So there is a movement in the hair cells. So this movement in the hair cells will generate an action potential, which will generate an action potential. So this action potential through auditory nerve fibers is transmitted to the auditory cortex of the cerebrum. So through auditory nerve, it reaches to auditory cortex of cerebrum. So this is how the mechanism of hearing takes place. Initially, pinna will collect the sound waves and which will be sent to the external auditory canal, that is auditory meatus, which will strike the tympanum. From tympanum, it reaches to middle ear. So that is in middle ear from malleus to incus, incus to stapes. From stapes to inner ear, that is cochlea, where there are hair cells which are belongs to organ of corti, which are present above the basilar membrane. And above this hair cells there is a tectorial membrane. So through resonance membrane and then to the basilar membrane it reaches to tympanic canal. So due to this vibrations there will be a movement in the hair cells. Due to this movement in hair cells there will be action potential generated. This action potential through auditory nerve it reaches to auditory cortex of cerebral. So by which again the processing will take place and again through motor neuron it sends some information. So this is how the mechanism of hearing will occur in humans. Okay. So till now we have discussed about the reflex action, the structure of eye, mechanism of vision, structure of ear, mechanism of hearing. So these are the topics which we discussed till now. Okay. So that's all for today's session. Let's meet in the next session. Follow us on social media, SPSVERSITY. Thank you all.